Hi, I'm David,
And I'm John.
and this is Queer Money, the only show on the internet talking about money from the personal finance from the LGBT perspective. We believe that there needs to be a voice in the personal finance space when it comes to money, and that's why we're here.
In this show, we're talking about how to finance your wedding when you can't count on your straight parents to pay for it. How can we adapt to traditional models? How can we adapt when traditional models don't work? So this episode is brought to us by HIVsmart.org. HIV Smart is dispelling the myths of HIV, so please visit their website at HIVsmart.org and show them your support.
As always, Blab is an open discussion. If you'd like to add comments on the right-hand side, go ahead and do so. If you'd like to ask us a question, feel free to type /Q before the question, and it'll appear on the left-hand side for all of us to see. Let's go ahead and meet our guest.
Very cool. And we're happy to have back the world famous William S. Matthews. Would you mind introducing yourself and plugging your book and whatever else you're working on right now?
Absolutely. I'm the world famous William S. Matthews. The S stands for success. I'm happy to be back here with you all to talk about my favorite subject, money and love. So tonight I get the best of both worlds. I am an author, keynote speaker, leader, ambassador for change, all that good stuff. My current book is available on Amazon. It's titled Everything I Needed to Know About Money I Learned from My Broke Ass Friends. And in the book, I have a chapter that is dedicated specifically for individuals that are getting ready to get married. So check out the book, go to my website, find out more about me at williamsmatthews.com, and let's dive into it.
Absolutely. And we'll have links to your book and your website on our show notes. That'll go up live Thursday.
Perfect.
So definitely purchase that book. I'm sure it's awesome.
Yes.
So kickstart the conversation. The first question we have is when David and I were talking about this, and this is very fascinating, how are parental views on same-sex marriage changing relative to the general public? So we did some research ourselves, and we found that the 60% of the general population as of June 2015 supported same-sex marriage, and 45% of baby boomers supported same-sex marriage. So the population of people who were most likely to have children of marrying age, about 50%, close to half of them would support, it sounds like, same-sex marriage or a child getting married.
Right. Yeah, we see so much more of that happening. The change that has just happened over, say, the last 10 years, how many more people in general. We know that a lot of that is coming from the youth, but obviously adults are changing. And those statistics, those kinds of polls are only done of individuals who are of adult age, of an age in which they can contact them. Oftentimes, like I think one of those was the Pew Research Center, and they specifically zero in on individuals. They like to work a lot of times with individuals who have a voting record. So it's individuals who are of voting age, but obviously there are a lot of individuals who are of the age where they would have children that would fall into that group.
Yeah.
What do you see, William? We know that you work in this space a lot. What are you seeing?
If I see attitudes changing on same-sex marriages,
right?
Yeah,
I do, especially with the young millennials generation coming up. I think because it's part of their everyday life, whether on television and music and in school, they all know someone that's openly gay or possibly a couple that is the same-sex couple that's married. And I think the baby boomers, it's taken them a while, like, okay, this is now becoming the new norm. So I think as we see generations progress, it's just going to be a more open and acceptable thing, and you'll know someone. And so it's not such a taboo subject. So I think the attitudes are changing. We still have a long way to go, but I think that we're making progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
I think of all the queer people that we know who've gotten married recently, I only know of one person's parents who weren't supportive enough and who didn't go to the wedding.
Yeah.
That's probably about a dozen or so friends who've gotten married.
Yeah.
Over the last year or a couple of years. Do you, in your circle of friends and your relationships, are you experiencing the same thing? Are your friends having trouble with their parents supporting that?
I've been fortunate to most of my friends, their parents and family members have been very supportive, and definitely with the stigma of being in the South for one, and then the African American community has not been that open of it. But fortunately, all of my individuals, friends and colleagues that I know, they've had very supportive family members, and so it hasn't been that much of a struggle. Now, of course, I do know maybe one or two. It took their parents a while to come along. But for the most part, it's been a very positive experience, which, again, is surprisingly based upon my location and, the race community of the Black population.
Right. That was when I was looking at the data, that did stand out to me that no matter how you slice the data, the African-American population was much more against same-sex marriage and anything LGBTQ than any other slice of however you want to slice the pie. Yeah. Why, I don't, if you know, why is that?
For several reasons. I think for one, you have to understand the African American community is very faith-based. The churches are very big in the community, and they still have the stigma that this is not what God wants. And so you have that aspect of it. And then also it's not as openly talked about in the African American community as it is in other communities, where you might have a gay uncle or the gay aunt or cousin, but it's whispered about at the family reunion. It's not openly discussed. And I think that one of the things that's making the change is the millennial generation and younger generations, where nowadays it's becoming more acceptable on television and magazines and songs, and you see more openly gay entertainers and celebrities. So at least the conversation is starting to happen. But I think more so than anything, it just happened. The African American community is that way because of the whole faith base and being very involved in the church. The church is the heartbeat to the Black community.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So, what I also thought was interesting, though, no matter how conservative a group was, the more that they were exposed or to somebody who's in the LGBT community, the more open that they were with at least supporting them, maybe not necessarily to the extent of same-sex marriage, but didn't have any negative biases toward them, which I thought was interesting, whether they were religious or not.
Right. I think that's the case with almost everything that we don't know. When you meet somebody who's a Muslim and you start having conversations with them and they become a part of your regular daily life, maybe you work with them or something like that, you understand that there aren't necessarily the same fears that you may have or preconceived ideas that you may have. They break down those barriers. And I think that happens across all different walks of life. When you meet somebody that's, a particular has a particular lifestyle or national origin or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Right. You're stepping into the unknown. I think it's no different than the HIV/AIDS stigma back in the 80s, where it was just like you didn't know anything about it. So you didn't want to touch or be in the same room with someone who was infected or had AIDS. And so now, as you more educated about it, people, it's not a death sentence. I think it's the same thing, not the best metaphor, but as far as people in the community, like, okay, well, I do have a family member that's gay and they seem to be okay. And we're having conversations about it at the family reunion table or on the holiday parties. So it's not such a taboo subject. And the more you know, the better you are. You're educating yourself with it.
Yeah. Stephen Christopher, who has a podcast, Business Revolution, if you haven't checked it out. I forget what the topic was, but he was talking about how 50,000 years ago, when we were cave people, different was very often bad. And so it's in our evolution to say, this is an anomaly. We're not used to, whether it's, this tiger or this other tribe of people or whatever, we're not used to these people. And so we should keep up our guard, because very often different meant, death.
Right.
We just haven't evolved much beyond that, unfortunately. And we still think that different is bad. We have to get over that.
Right. The subject he was talking about was fear, and how fear was built in as a natural reaction to protect us from death. Fear of certain sounds or fear of certain locations. That's what protected individuals. And then, once you meet somebody and interact with them, you realize there's no reason to be fearful of somebody who's gay.
It's just like, or what other demographic you can come up with. Right. I think it's interesting. But it was probably the first time I took Dave on vacation with me and my family. My parents didn't know that I was gay. And
Right.
we actually didn't tell any of my parents. He just came as a friend. But we went bike riding with my 3 nieces, who were probably, I think Mackenzie was the oldest at 12. So it was at 12, 10, and
I think she was 14. That's 14. Yeah.
So 14, 12, 10. And we were riding our bikes, and the middle niece, so she would have been 12, said, Uncle John, when are you and David going to have kids? And we're like, what?
What? They knew.
Because I thought it was surprising because my mom had said, like, oh, no, my parents did know. We
Right,
just weren't allowed to tell the kids
Right.
because they didn't want to have a conversation with them. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the girls are like, when are you going to have babies? We want you to have adopt twins, and we're going to name them. They were naming them and stuff. It was weird. So, yeah, and they're millennials, and so they're the generation that you're talking about. Their views are changing rapidly, maybe too rapidly for some of the older population. So we'll kind of getting off a couple topics. So go back to the second question. How common is it? This is also interesting because I think we're blazing trails now. How common is it for one or both sets of parents to pay for their child's same-sex wedding?
Now that I have not seen. I don't know if you all are familiar with this television show that was recently airing on the FYI network. It was 3 different couples. One was a same-sex couple, one was an interracial couple, and one was different religion backgrounds. And it was a docu-series of their lives as they were getting ready to get married. And I say all that to say for the same-sex couple, the guys who were on the show, I think they were out of Boston, but the family lived in California. One of the gentlemen, he was saying that his father is having a really hard time accepting him being gay and wanting to marry a man. And he says, my parents aren't helping me at all for this wedding. It's solely just me and my fiance. He said, but when my sister got married, he gave her $15,000 and she only stayed married for a few years. And I've been with this guy for several years, and he can see that we're struggling financially, but the father would not get any financial support. Yeah. So lo and behold, not to give the show away, but if you haven't seen it, the season finale was last week.
We'll have to check it out on Hulu or Netflix.
You should. But the father, it's called, oh God, now I'm drawing a brain freeze. Maybe somebody who is watching us can give me the topic of the name of the show.
The station's FYI though.
Yes, it's FYI, and the show came on Tuesday evening. So anyway, at the end on the season finale, the father who was having a hard time accepting his son marrying a man did show up to the ceremony. Because the whole while I'm watching the show, I'm thinking, well, why does he care if his parents are going to be there or not? I just couldn't get it. But I understand that some people are very family orientated, and that means the world to them to have their acceptance of their parents. Right. But as I am a consumer and a viewer watching the show, I'm thinking if you're going to pay for the wedding yourself, you live in your life halfway across the country, why do you care if they're going to contribute to the wedding or if they're going to come? But I had to remind myself, this is his mother and his father. He wants his parents to be there. His mother agreed that she was going to be there and to support it. She may necessarily didn't agree with it, but she was going to be there. But the father was a macho Latino man, and he had a really hard time. But I was happy to see that the father did come to the ceremony, and he sat in the front row. Okay. But the series talked a lot about how they got no financial support from their parents and how that was really devastating for them.
Yeah. So they're it's $50,000, you said?
I think they end up spending like $25,000 to $30,000, and it was a very low key wedding. I think they did at an airport hangar in Palm Springs, and that's where they had the wedding and ceremony. Both of the guys are flight attendants, so they wanted to do something on an airport airplane type deal to kind of have that theme. But it was a very interesting show, and I encourage people to, if you can't catch an episode, if you don't have that channel, to possibly Google the show. It's on the FYI network, and it just really shows how far we've come, but how so far we have to go. Because even in this day and age, you still have people that have an issue with the interracial relationship. It was a Black woman and a white man on the show. Yeah. And my analogy that I'm always using, and I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but when I'm talking to family members or colleagues, African Americans that have an issue with homosexuality or same-sex couples, I'm thinking, do you realize that 30 to 40 years ago, it was an issue for an interracial couple to get married, a Black man and a white, and a white woman to get married. And so I think same-sex couples and their right to marriage and equality and all, they're wanting this equal rights, the same things that an interracial couple would have wanted.
Right.
Or for someone that's a Jewish person that happens to be marrying a Christian person, a Catholic or something. Why is it an issue with who you go to bed with or who you love?
Right.
So needless to say, families have issues with it. It is a challenge and it is a major concern, even though we are in the 21st century. I do not know of any same-sex couples that have had a family member contribute financially to their wedding. I think the biggest thing that I encounter is just getting the support from family and friends to show up. I don't want their money. I don't want their checkbook. I just want them to come and support and give me their blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I think David and I kind of disagree a little bit on this. His take is that, and well, I'll say my take is that same-sex marriage has evolved very rapidly. It's almost been too fast for us to keep up with. So I can imagine that parents who have a son and a daughter, and they spent their lives saving for their daughter's wedding, and then only recently found out that their child is gay, or that their son is gay, and that their son can now get married, and didn't prepare financially. I think we got to be a little bit forgiving that they just didn't plan for that, and whether or not they accept it or not, they probably don't have the deep pockets to be able to cover the daughter and the son.
Yeah.
Right.
But you have a slightly different opinion.
Well, I think that when you look at how tradition falls out when it comes to a wedding, that a bride's family pays for certain portions of it, and a groom's family pays for certain portions of it. And I think that parents need to understand, or maybe be thinking about this idea that just because my child has come out to me doesn't mean that I no longer have any financial responsibility, or I don't know if maybe responsibility isn't necessarily the right word, but financial opportunity to support my children in their wedding. That's something that they should potentially be thinking about. If you had planned on, I think we looked through some of the most common things that grooms' families pay for, and some of those are things like they pay for the rehearsal dinner, and they'll pay for the honeymoon. So those are things that the families have said that they would pay, the groom's side of the family would pay for, or certain flower are paid for by the groom's family. And so I think that when parents are thinking about this whole idea of I have a son and I have a daughter, or I have two sons and one daughter, it doesn't necessarily mean that you only have to think about financially, if you want to support your children in their weddings, that you only have to worry about your daughter. I think that would then kind of, if we assume that that's the case, then does that mean that parents would always support their lesbian daughters' weddings, but they would never support their gay sons' weddings? So you kind of got to maybe take a look.
What about the age factor? Because if someone is in their late 20s and they're getting married, opposed to someone that's in their mid 30s, they're going to their parents and say, "Hey, I'm getting married." Is that something that should be taken into the equation as well? Where are you on the age factor of it?
Yeah, I think if you're like 30, 40 years old getting married, there's a good chance that your parents are close to retiring if they're not retiring.
Right.
And having to fork over $5,000 to $15,000 or more is a huge dent to their nest egg, I would think. And that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah. I'm 35. I'll go ahead and tell my age. I know I look 27, but I'm 35. And so if I was to get married this summer, I wouldn't feel comfortable, asking my parents for anything when they're in their 60s and they're trying to, you think they should be retired, but they're not. But as they are, looking for their leaner years in life, it just, for me, and they might possibly offer to say, well, hey, let me pay the photographer or for the cake or for something. But I'm just thinking like maybe when I was 25, those are conversations I would want to have. But at 35, I'm just thinking like, no, we're going to do this. We're fine. So that's something that I want people that are that are watching this evening to be mindful as well. I think the age factor will come into play because you might have parents that feel like, well, hey, you've been working now for 10, 15 years and you're a homeowner, you own a car, you got a 401k or 403b. Yeah. What steps have you taken to splurge on this wedding? And then one of the things I definitely want to talk about is this massive amount of money that people spend for a wedding. And, watching this show just over the past few weeks, these people spent a pretty penny. And one of the things that I talk about in my book, chapter 3, it's, before you say I do, it talks about thinking outside the box to plan for your wedding. You have to really be strategic. Do you know if you're going to go on a Saturday night to get married, the cost is going to be the most money? Right. Look at a Sunday brunch. Do you want to get married on, during the weeknight, or when is the peak season? June, the wedding month. I've always told people your best bet is a destination wedding or to elope. Go to Vegas, go to the Caribbean. If I get married this summer, fingers crossed or something, I would say, hey, let's go to the Caribbean and let's just take about, 20 people, 10, 15, 20 closest family and friends, and let's just go and do it. Right. And that way we can maybe keep the cost under $5,000. And let's come home and have a big party at the house and invite everybody who we want to. But that way we're not starting our union out in debt.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and some couples are. and they're putting their families' finances at risk. I think going back to what you were saying earlier, I think it's important to think about is the traditional concept of marriage, and I'm not even going all the way back to the very beginning, is a couple in their 20s, a girl, a man, and a woman in the young age, just starting out their lives. Their families were helping them get started, so it makes sense because they probably didn't have much more than just a high school or college education. They were just starting out, they didn't have a whole lot of income, a whole lot saved up. So their parents were kind of sending them off on a life to start together. Whereas now people are waiting longer to get married. Mm-hmm. People are marrying same-sex couples, same-sex partners. So I think maybe it might behoove everybody, straight, gay, whatever, to start throwing away all the old paradigms and figuring out what works for you.
Exactly. We don't have a common marriage, so therefore we don't need a common wedding. Let's think outside the box. And that's what I always tell people, whether you're heterosexual or in a same-sex relationship, do what works for you. And even if you are getting family members to contribute to your wedding financially, whose wedding is it? Is it theirs or is it yours? Do you really want to get married in a church? Do you want this massive reception with 200 people when you only know 20 people? Half the people on the guest list or your parents' friends, and there's people that they want to invite. And I think the bigger your wedding, and this is coming from someone who was an event planner, that's my background, event planning, finances, real estate, everything, I do it all. But coming from someone who is an event planner, I think the more people, the bigger budget, you're losing focus of the day. And you're getting so caught up in the small things that you're just stressing yourself out unnecessarily. And so coming from the event planner, I always tell people your best bet to go small and keep the budget very low. You have your entire life. I am more inclined to see someone spend a ton of money on a reception or a ceremony when they're celebrating a 10-year wedding anniversary or a 15-year or even a 5-year. To me, that's when I think you should go all out.
Something.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. I have a really good friend. They're celebrating their 10-year anniversary next year, and they said they're going to go all out. And they had a very, low-key wedding, and they said they wanted to hit that milestone. And now they've also saved money. They're setting their careers. They don't need any financial support from anyone. And they said their goal has always been to do it really big on the milestone, the 10-year, the 15, the 20. I would want to do that.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool.
You know what's interesting? Our second show in series was about how to have a gay wedding without breaking the budget. And one of the things that we did talk about on that show was that gay weddings in general spend $14,000 less than the average straight wedding. And I think that, some of the things that we've talked about here, the fact that we are oftentimes a little bit older, but that we don't have financial support from our families has made a lot of gays really kind of rein that in. And I also think that the just sheer number of gay couples that got married at the Justice of the Peace because they wanted to do it then and there. They wanted to get it done before laws changed or anything like that. They started off with something that was very simple. It forced them to think about something simple. Maybe we're going to see kind of this renaissance in, like you were talking about, having wedding receptions when you reach your 10-year mark or when you reach a major milestone.
David's statistic is from The Advocate. The Huffington Post a year prior published that not only are they having cheaper weddings, but lesbians and gays are having smaller weddings. Only 28% of LGBTs getting married are having 100 or more people at their wedding.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was kind of, so that means almost 75% of people who are getting LGBT who are getting married are having small weddings, less than 100 people.
Yeah. When it comes to cutting the cost, with most people, they come to me and they say, what can I do to scale back or cut the cost? And I say, well, the first thing, look at the day of the week and look at your guest list. Look at your guest count, because you're paying per head, whether it's $40 or $100 a plate. Like, do you really want to spend $75 on this person over here who you speak to every 2 years? Look at all of that and just really think outside the box. Really do your research, talk to friends, talk to people who recently got married, see what their horror stories are. If they could do it again, what would they do differently? I was just at a very nice restaurant the other day and they showed me the back private room space, and we got to talking, and the lady, the event director there, she told me they rent out the restaurant all the time for buyouts, and in the buyouts are just like, I want to say like $6,000 to $7,000, and you can have about 75 people at a steakhouse, and it's a very nice steakhouse. I'm like, see, this makes more sense for me to do. We go and we get married, whether it's at the courthouse, I have a very intimate ceremony, and then we invite 50 friends to a restaurant that we bought out the entire restaurant, and people can drink and have steak or food or salad, and we can take pictures and play music. That to me is more beneficial because at the end of the day, I know people like tradition, but you have to think, do you really need the flowers? Do you need the DJ and the band? Do you need the photo booth? Do you need to change 2 or 3 clothes? Do you need such a massive bridal party? Like, what's important for you? And I know so many people that spend so much money on these weddings, and they have all these people, and I'm thinking, I know you want to like half these people that in the room, you don't even know their name. And why are you doing it? Is it to impress people? Is it to look back on the pictures? Or what is it for? Is it a party that you want? Or is it the union and the ceremony that you're embracing to remember, making it memorable? Right. I think those are questions you need to ask yourself. Is it the party that you want, or is it the memory?
Right. Yeah. And I guess, kind of pulling this back into the family, and your parents providing or potentially providing financial support, having that kind of conversation with them too. If you do have parents who are wanting to be financially supportive, asking them, or I guess maybe really being forthright with them and saying, this is what we want. This is how we expect or are looking for our day to be. There's always those horror stories of the mother-in-law and imposing certain desires or wishes. And, I know of an individual whose the father of the groom imposed various stipulations on the wedding, even though he didn't pay for any of the wedding. He imposed certain stipulations with having guests from Japan and all over the world. And again, I know people were like, well, why is that person there? So having those being very honest.
My mother would probably contribute $1,000 and would have the biggest input and would be the biggest mother-in-law Zilla. And because she wants to follow etiquette, and you have to invite this person, and why are you doing that? Why are you choosing this color? And I'm thinking, baby girl, you just gave me $1,000 and you're making it seem like you have to say so for everything. And so that's that.
Yeah. All right. We need to turn some light on here. We're starting to get some shadows. And
I thought we ran out of tape.
No.
Tape. So you have the biggest people, and actually the people who make the most noise are the people who contribute so little financially. And those are the people you have to put on mute. And I do that all the time. I just like, your mic is turned off. I can't hear you anymore. I don't hear anything you're saying. And at the end of the day, this is my party. This is my wedding, my ceremony. This is my life. This is what I want to do. And so you have to really have that discussion early on before you go and inquire for money. Sometimes someone's money has some stipulations with it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's not always free.
Yeah.
And no such thing as free money. No such thing as free anything. And it's like, do you want to hear that in your ear? And this is what you should do, or this is what I would do. So you have to think about that.
Right. This is my day.
Right.
So maybe it's wise for, same-sex couples to figure out what is it they want. start planning it out and estimating what those.
Go elope. Elope. I tell everybody.
Right.
Elope. But
Right.
we're talking about everyone tonight. So for those who you do not want to elope, we have some suggestions for you.
Right. That's funny.
Figure out what you want.
Yes, have the discussions. Yes, figure out what you and your partner want. Have be very firm of what you're not, what are you not willing to bend or compromise on, and just realize that when you do go and inquire for money, that it will have some stipulations with it, right. And then also really think long and hard about the amount of money that you want to request. How much do you really need?
Right.
Those are things to really think about. Or it could just be like, well, it would just really help us out if you play for the DJ. Or I really want this one photographer, but they're a little bit out of our budget. If you could just contribute for that. Most times people are more inclined to jump on board if it's just like, oh, okay, that's all you need? Yeah. Okay, cool, I got that. Yeah. I'll write you a check for that or send me their information and we can do the PayPal exchange. No worries,
Yeah.
But if you're kind of like, well, I just need you to help. If you're like me, I'd be like, you need me to help what? I need the fine print.
Right.
What exactly do you need me to help with?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Be clear. So if a gay couple has to ask their parents for support or any family member, how would we propose asking for that? Or are we just saying, no, don't?
I think, so there are individuals out there who are watching that say, no, I want to. I have that strong relationship with my parents and I think they are financially able to do it. I want to do it. First, have a shot. No. I think just go in. Just be open and honest and have a conversation with them about it. Like any other thing, if they're your family, they love and support you, at the end of the day, they can say yes and they can say no. And just be prepared that you may hear not what you were expecting to hear. You might think like, oh, clearly they're going to say yes.
Right.
And it may not be that way. It may not be. And so that's a hard pill to swallow. So not to go into it being a negative Nancy, but just be prepared that I may not get that financial support from my mother, father, my grandmother. Because if you're like me, my grandmother, she wouldn't be down for that. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I think the bigger question sometimes it's do you want them there? Of course, you would love their support, but at the end of the day, I would want your presence to be there more so than your financial support. Right. So I think at the end of the day, just go in, be prepared, be honest, and but brace yourself that you may not get the response that you were hoping for. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they love you or think any less of you. And it still means that you can have the wedding that you wanted. You're just going to have to be strategic with it and be creative.
Yeah. I was thinking that for a lot of individuals, I think that just broaching the whole idea of getting married is probably the first step. Maybe your parents haven't been thinking about the fact that you are going to get married. Maybe they have. We talked about. I think that there's kind of a little bit of a generational gap. Maybe if you're a Gen Xer and you have millennial children, you may already expect that, or they may already be expecting or have had those kind of conversations with you. But just initially talking about the fact that you do want to get married and leave it at that. Allow them to then say, oh, we'd like to be supportive.
Yeah.
We'd like to help. Let them approach it.
That's a very good point.
If you feel like you need some financial help, you can maybe after some time period say, just, would you like to help? I want to offer that. I'm not asking for anything specifically, but if you want to help, we would appreciate it. And leave it at that.
Leave the door open and don't be passive aggressive with it. Don't dangle the carrot and say, well, it'd really be nice if we had some help. But I hate when people do that. Be an adult, be very clear. You're getting ready to make a very wise, big adult decision. You're marrying someone. This is probably the biggest decision you will make. And so just be forthright with it. And I love the analogy that you use to say, would you like to help? I mean, it's no pressure. It's just putting it out there. And if so, let's have a discussion about it.
Right. Well, because some parents could be offended if you don't ask for help. So you kind of got to balance both of them.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe feel uncomfortable about approaching you and saying that they want to help. You provide the opportunity and allow them to say no.
You could be financially stable and the parents might just assume that you might get offended if they ask. Mom and dad, I won't be offended if you want to give me money.
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with a baby boomer type parent and it's still a little taboo for them and they're still trying to get adjusted to the whole gay thing and everything. They might say, well, when two men are marrying each other, do you need any parent support or do you guys have everything? So I don't really know. So you're right with that. Parents might feel taken aback of, I don't really know. Like, I didn't want to ask you, are you gay? Yeah. So I don't want to say, do you need help for the wedding? Because it's something that is not that common to them. Yeah. They're used to seeing a man and a woman. Yeah. So it's something, that's a very good point that you brought that up, because they might feel, I don't know what to do in this situation. Do I offer or do I wait for them? Mm-hmm. So I think that's why, again, I take it back to have the discussion, but be very open, forthright, and honest, and just talk to them about it.
Yeah, just exactly. Cool. Yeah. So we talked about, all of the traditions are kind of out the window. How should a same-sex couple decide who pays for what?
Flip a coin, and then you do. I think realistically, again, when I was on you all show last time, I said a marriage, as I look at it's a merger. It's two businesses that are merging. Is your marriage a buyout or a merger? Right. So I think it just goes back to any couple, whether you're heterosexual or same-sex couple, you need to sit down realistically and make a budget and compromise and think about what makes sense. You might want a royal wedding, but clearly your budget is a barbecue picnic style at the park. Right. You don't want to have something just for show and going into debt. I have several family members that charge like thousands of dollars for their wedding and they put it on their credit card. And now 5, 6, 7 years into the marriage, I'm thinking that everything is paid for. And they say, no, we're still paying for our wedding, which is so unfortunate because now you're having kids, you want a bigger home, you want to start a business, and you're still paying for a party from 7 years ago. Yeah. So I say all that to say you just need to sit down and have a discussion with a pen and paper and say, okay, this is our wish list, but this is our reality list. Right. And this is what we want to do. What can we afford? And do we have someone like a William that we can call that can give us some really good ideas and tips of do it on a Friday afternoon versus a Saturday night, or, try a brunch style wedding. Do you really need a photographer, paying, $2,000 or so? What can we do to cut some corners but make it seem really, really nice? We want to purchase a home in 2 years. Do we really want to spend $20,000 on a wedding when that can really be a down payment?
Right, exactly.
You just have to think case by case. Exactly. For some tips, ideas, and to see my handsome face. But I think you can really just have the conversation and just start thinking of what makes sense for you all, because there's no set formula for every couple. It's on a case-by-case basis or scenario, and just realize that it's going to have to come with compromising. It will take some compromising, but this is a really good test for you, because isn't that what marriage is all about?
Yeah, right. The whole thing.
Yeah,
that's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I wish I would have remembered it, but some of our personal finance friends have written articles on how you can have amazing weddings for like $3,000 or less. I think our friend Emery Groner wrote an article for her website or MSN Money, I can't remember, about how she had a $3,000 or less wedding. We'll put this in the show notes to provide.
You can, and I'll do a plug really quick. My first book is on event planning, all about how to throw a party on a budget. And I have some really amazing tips on there of how to throw any type of party, but primarily geared for weddings. And it's titled Everything I Need to Know About Life I Learned from an Event Planner, available on Amazon. Get that. Wedding season is coming up. Plug. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. We'll put those in the
it's too. Just using things around your house, going to, Michael's and craft stores, relying on friends that are really good and with doing certain things. Just really trying to say, hey, my budget is $7,000. What can I pull off for $7,000? And you will be amazed of what you can do. Just think outside the box and get away from the traditional aspect of everything.
Yeah, but before you go get balloons, make sure you order them in advance. You can't just show up on a Saturday and expect you're going to get the balloons immediately. It takes at least 20 minutes, if not longer.
We had that experience this weekend going to a baby shower.
I just thought you could walk in and get balloons, and apparently that's not how it's done.
Especially on a Saturday afternoon, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and florals are the biggest things, and I don't know how many male same-sex couples or any same-sex couple utilize flowers, but I always tell people that flowers are very nice, but you're spending a massive amount of money to utilize flowers for 2 to 3 hours. Afterwards, what do you do with them?
Right.
And that's always been my question. So for those couples that do want to utilize flowers and spend money on them, kudos to you. But may I encourage you to possibly think about donating your flowers after your ceremony to a nursing home or to a children's hospital or some type of hospital, because I just hate to see flowers just go to waste. And they don't throw them in the trash, but it's just an enormous amount of money that we spend on floral arrangements. Right. And after the ceremony is over with, you're just trying to figure out a way to get rid of the flowers. And it's so sad, but you can make someone's day or their week by donating them to a hospital or to a church or something like that.
So that must be an event planner thing, because we had Amy Palafroni on our second show when we talked about the wedding topic. And she said the same thing about flowers. And she had some recommendations in lieu of flowers. But I guess that's a great point. If you do want to do flowers, if you're adamant about it, then do something good with them after
make a point. Exactly. Make a point to utilize them. So that way you're also getting use out of them, but someone else is getting. So it's knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right. Exactly. Very cool. So last question. This is going pretty quickly. What other financial norms are changing with same-sex marriage? You and I talked about this a little bit. I thought it was kind of interesting, but can you think of any any traditional norms that are kind of going to the wayside financially with same-sex marriage?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Repeat the question one more time.
What other financial norms are changing with same-sex marriage?
Okay.
Other than throwing all traditions out the window with regard to who's paying for what, or even having anybody else pay for it, are there other financial considerations that the LGBT community needs to adapt to when they're considering getting married and being married?
I was thinking that I would assume, we haven't decided to get married, but I assume that a lot of relationships would be similar to ours, that there isn't a preconceived or expectation of I'm the groom and you're the bride, you're the groom and I'm the bride, and you must pay for and you must do this. So it may be kind of coming to the point where there's a logical conversation being had between 2 people about how it is that we're going to pay for all of this together. Yeah. And it's not the expectation of I need to have a 7-carat diamond engagement ring, or I need to have a Vera Wang wedding dress, or our reception needs to have.
Why do we never need to have anything that I want?
Right, an open bar where everybody can drink whatever it is that they want, because then I think the price tag becomes joint. It's our price tag rather than, we did read an article or a question actually on a gay wedding etiquette site prior to this, where a mother was asking, my son is getting married. My daughter got married 10 years ago. We paid for her wedding. We don't have the money to pay for my son's wedding. And I think that maybe those kinds of notions or ideas maybe will change over time, because it's possible that gay marriages become the example of it's a family's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility if they're going to pay for it, rather than, the bride's family needs to pay for X and the groom's family pays for Y. Or what's that?
Divide and conquer.
Right, exactly. But I think that it's gonna be coming from us as individuals, because we're gonna have to be the first ones who pick the divide and conquer, rather than just assuming or assigning it to a particular family.
Right.
Yeah, I tell people just make your own rules. Do what you see best for. No 2 couples are the same, and so therefore your wedding shouldn't be what you are used to seeing or what everybody else wants for you. I just think the best thing that you could do is just sit down with your partner and have an open communication dialogue of what you want, what and you can say, what do you want? Well, this is what I want. And then just write down a list again of this is our wants versus our needs, and what can we realistically afford. And then possibly there is a great segue to say, do you think your parents our family members will contribute anything to this. And then you could be like, okay, well, that's maybe some money that we can count on. And otherwise, it's going to be solely just the two of us. But this is a great way. And it's such a great learning tool because that way you can see what you're signing up for. How is your partner?
How good is this person at making decisions?
with compromising and dealing with money, and to say, no, this is what I want, and I don't care how much it costs. Because on this show that I mentioned earlier, the same-sex couple, to me, I thought the one of the guys, he was just being a little brat during some episodes, just saying that this is what I want, and I want this, and I don't care how much it costs. And I'm thinking, like, see, we wouldn't work because that wouldn't work for me.
Exactly.
So it's just a great communication method to have as you start on a life together. It's definitely, and I just can't reiterate again, please do not start, your life out in debt. It's not worth it. It's not necessary, because I can promise you a year or two years later, no one will remember what they ate at your wedding or what song that was playing.
So dry.
Right. Or nobody cared that you had on a Tom Ford tuxedo and Christian Louboutin shoe. Like, nobody cares about that.
Tom Ford cares.
So you're doing all of this for what?
Right. Exactly.
It's for you to have some memories of a special day.
Again,
we had a Jessica Ozar on and one of our shows, and she and her wife are both Jewish. They got married in Israel, but
no, they got married in California. They met in Israel.
Oh, they met in Israel. You're right. But they decided to throw all tradition out the window, and they took traditions from other cultures and other religions, whatever they wanted that worked out for their special day, and they had a great time. She said it was reasonably priced as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the beach is free. I'm telling people all the time. Go get married barefoot on the beach, put out 10 chairs for your friends, and just go and do it. A destination wedding. Also, may I add, a destination wedding can really cut down on some of the confusion of who to invite, who not to invite. Because you can just tell people, like, well, I didn't invite you because you don't have a passport. So, therefore, that's the reason why you weren't on the list.
I got a Rite Aid.
But, well, it was going to take you 6 weeks to get a passport, and we didn't have all that time, bada bing, bada boom. But we are having a really nice house party at the house, and we're inviting everyone. It's a potluck, so bring a dish, and we're having a nice party at the house, and you can come and celebrate us, because again, you're celebrating us, the union, not the party. And you just need to be mindful of that. So you're going to get people, they're going to get their feelings hurt no matter what you do. I deal with that all the time from an event planner aspect of throwing a party. I get someone to say, well, you didn't invite me. It happens. And as I tell people, is it the party that you wanted, or did you want to be there to support me? Because it sounds like you're upset that you didn't get invited to the party.
Right.
But you can still support me by doing X, Y, and Z.
Right. There's a couple ways to do it diplomatically.
Right.
So I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah.
So thank you, William S. Matthews, for joining us again.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me again.
We'll certainly have you on in the future when we're on
here. Anytime you need me, day or night, rain or shine.
WilliamSMatthews.com. Everything I learned about money, I learned from my broke ass friends. Right?
Yes.
On Amazon.
Right. Yes.
And we'll have all that in the show notes. We also want to thank HIVsmart.org for their sponsorship. Please visit their website at hivsmart.org. They're doing a crowdfunding right now for a project. So check that out and see if you can support that in any way, shape, or form. And David and I will be back next week with our last show for this iteration of Queer Money. I can't believe it's been 11 weeks. And we'll have on a couple of special guests, and we'll discuss the gay income disparity and is it real or not? So join us next week on Blab at 7 Mountain Time. Tuesday. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And David will do some mad editing tomorrow night, and we'll have the show notes and the edited video on Thursday on our website.
Sounds good.
So thank you very much.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.